right, we're ready to go whenever you are. I want everyone to know that we just tried to start the episode, but then Brad took a bite of pizza, so...
It was my last bite. Welcome to Batshit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar, so strap in and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert, pretty damn batshit.
Cheers!
Cheers! We've got our scotch because today's episode topic is Drugs Part 2.
Drugs Part 2.
Self-medication.
Self-medication. I really love the fact that this is the topic while we're eating pizza and drinking scotch.
Yeah.
Which are like two of the biggest drugs, in my opinion, for dealing with my depression and my bipolar.
That's a good point, bringing up food.
Oh, food is a huge drug.
Yeah, we don't tend to talk about, with mental health, food as a self-medication.
Right.
But when I go depressed, I eat so much fast food.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, think about sugar. Just sugar is just straight up addictive, man. Like, there are studies out there that say it's more addictive than nicotine, right?
Yeah.
And all the food that we crave when we're depressed has that, like, high fat, high trans fat, high sugar, content.
Because you get that dopamine rush.
Because you get the dopamine rush, which then, feeds that addiction to the sugar and the trans fats, which just make you eat more of it, which only makes you feel worse physically because you're eating all this crap for your body.
Yeah.
And then it gets secular, right?
Yeah. Like I've talked before about how heavy I got during that depressive state during COVID.
Right.
And it was just from ordering Taco Bell every night.
Sure.
By the way, this episode is brought to you by Del Taco.
By Del Taco. Del Taco. Fuck Taco Bell.
That should be their slogan. That would be great. That would do really well.
It's just like Del Taco employee beating the crap out of a Taco Bell employee with like bean and cheese burritos. Just like,
Burrito chucks.
Burrito chucks. They should sell that on a $1 menu.
Yeah.
But no, going back to it, like food is definitely a drug. It's definitely, in my opinion. I mean,
what is a drug? A drug elicits hormonal and chemical responses in your body to make you feel a certain way.
Right.
That's typically enjoyable. And food can do the same thing.
Totally.
Just maybe not to the same degree. I mean, obviously,
right.
A bean and cheese burrito isn't going to be like shooting up heroin.
I mean,
although if you guys know of a bean and cheese burrito that can do that, please
write in. Please write in. Or maybe there are people out there who are freebasing bean and cheese burritos and they just get a different response than we do.
I watched Pulp Fiction last night. I hadn't seen it in years. And, there's the whole Travolta shooting up with heroin sequence.
Oh, right.
And I was just watching it, and I was like, that's why I could never do heroin.
Needles?
Like, having to stick it in your arm. I was like, I wonder if you could do heroin subcutaneously.
What?
Like, just like in the belly fat?
Bloop. Like, that would be better for you?
I mean, I'm not saying I would do it. Still,
it would be better.
Yeah, I would think.
Well, they shoot up anywhere. I mean, you shoot up between your toes. Like, there are people who shoot up in their testicles. Like, you can shoot.
Why would you shoot?
Because it's harder to trace, harder to see the track marks. That's what I've heard.
I mean,
that may have just been like, maybe it's on a really weird, like right-wing website, and they were like, you know what the kids are doing today? Going to them blowjob parties and shooting up heroin into their testicles.
Man,
if anyone out there shoots up heroin into their testicles, please write in or leave us a voice
and
message.
let us know if you've ever gotten an infection
right?
from that.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about.
I'm really curious about that. But that takes us to the bulk of this topic, which is how people who are mentally ill, whether they're diagnosed or not, especially if they're undiagnosed, tend to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol.
Well, yeah, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that sounds kind of callous, but you do. You have to have a solution to the problem, and like it's one that is relatively easily accessible, right? You can walk into any liquor store, and or if you live here in California, walk into any marijuana dispensary, and you can buy a solution.
Yeah,
albeit a temporary one, but like. If you're depressed, man, going to the liquor store, getting that, getting that bottle of scotch and then swinging by Ralph's and grabbing them donuts. I mean, problem solved temporarily.
Yeah. And It's interesting how different things will take you into a different state.
Sure.
Alcohol can, at first, the first couple of drinks, make you a little manic.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a few more, it'll bring you down into a depressive state, especially the next day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Climbing out of that pit?
Oh, yeah. Ugh. And then other drugs, we've talked before, you would think marijuana would make you depressed, but it can trigger mania.
Sure. Do you smoke? Or edibles?
So, I never used to.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't much of a drinker. Never really was into anything until I started having my bad manic episodes last year.
Mm-hmm.
And started drinking a lot. We've talked about this where you can drink a whole bottle
of
something when you're manic, and it isn't shit.
Nope, ain't nothing.
Because I don't know if it's your metabolism ramps up. It's got to be all those chemicals.
Chemical imbalance, man. Like when you're manic, your brain is being flooded with chemicals and
adrenaline.
And the adrenaline, and alcohol is a depressant, so it takes that adrenaline down.
Yeah.
And anyway, continue. Sorry.
So I started drinking a lot more. I started doing the pot.
Doing the pots?
The
Mary Janes.
The Mary Janes. The hashish.
The koosh. What other old words? The doobies.
The
Smoking
reefer.
the doobies and the reefer.
The reefer. I was on reefer.
It's on reefer.
I was drunk on reefer.
I'm drunk on reefer. Riding that marijuana train to Pleasure Town, as the kids say. I actually wonder if there's new slang for like pot and marijuana that we're just not aware of.
I think everybody just calls it weed anymore.
Do they? It's just weed? Like, that's lazy.
Yeah.
That's really lazy.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's legal now.
Oh, yeah. It's lost a lot of its edge.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. It's like cigarettes. Like, there's not slang, like, give me a smoke.
Yeah.
It's about, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Or if you're young. Vape. Give me a vape.
Well, you can vape. Give me a vape.
Give me a vape.
Give me a vape.
Vape me.
Vape me.
That's what I want. Vape me, bro.
Vape me, baby. Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Oh, so gross.
What's wrong with you people?
But yeah, so I was doing that. And then I, for the first time in my life, I was like, I want to try harder stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I did MDMA.
Oh, really?
I did cocaine for the first time. Which you want to talk about manic.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea.
I didn't tell anybody either.
Oh, really?
So it wasn't even like, oh, you knew what was going on. I was just like incredibly manic. And I didn't know I was bipolar yet.
Right.
So I had no idea that's what I was doing. But I guarantee you none of that helped.
Yeah, none of that helped. Really? The cocaine wasn't like it didn't have the reverse effect of the manic? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. You would think. You would think it would just like even you out, right?
Do a line off a, diaper changing station in a bathroom. You figure like, now I'm right.
Oh, man. And let me tell you this. Don't do it before you get on a flight.
Well, what are you, insane?
Yes, Adam. That's what.
Fair. That's right.
Colon, living with mental illness.
Oh, right. That's what this is about. Awkward. I apologize.
Yeah.
No, but so MDMA. What was that experience like? Were you manic when you did that?
Oh yeah. I was manic when I did all this stuff. Because that's again not something normal me is interested in.
Sure.
Beyond a scholarly standpoint, I have
a scholarly standpoint.
I have a curiosity.
Oh, sure.
About stuff, but I have no interest to. When I'm normal me, I have no interest to engage in illegal activity.
Mm.
But when I'm manic and you get that risk taking and the grandiosity, it's like, what's the law matter?
Yeah.
And also the idea of like, I'll never get busted for anything.
Right. No
way. Because there are no consequences for my actions.
Too smart for them cops.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that. And then you just have this kind of, you want to live at 120 miles an hour.
Sure.
When you're manic. And so that was part of it. I was like, I just want to do this stuff.
Okay.
MDMA made me really chatty.
Really? Brad chatty.
You never guess.
I would never guess Brad being chatty.
Yeah. It made me really chatty. And honestly, that was about it. I was actually really disappointed And because you hear all this stuff, I was like, oh man, I thought like, you
can have an experience.
Touching my skin would be like an orgasm over and over, blah, 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 whatever. And it was just like,
I like to talk.
Yeah, the colors are vivid and I want to talk a lot. And
get a call. Let's discuss all of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
Yeah.
Brad, it's 3 a.m.
And just like, I will say, and this is an interesting thing for someone who suffers from this, because I didn't know I had this yet, but I was already experiencing bouts of shame and guilt after manic episodes.
Like calling people up and chatting too much, you felt shame.
Yeah. But that went away.
Okay.
Like while I was on it, like there was no shame. Like I could just like talk about all the stuff.
That's interesting.
Well, they do a lot of, that's coming into a lot of therapeutic uses. I'd read a lot about how it was used in couples therapy for that explicit reason. I mean, in some people, I didn't experience this, but in some people, it will create or strengthen a bond.
Interesting.
And that's not across the board,
right?
But that's one of the reasons they use it in couple therapy. But the main reason it's been used in couples therapy is that it gets rid of those barriers, so you can just talk openly.
You just speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's how I feel, and not only can you do that, the other person is receptive to listening.
Oh, okay.
So you can say, if both of you are on it, you can say, honey, here's how I feel. These are things that I've resented you for. And they won't get angry in the moment. And you can actually just discuss it and hopefully find a breakthrough.
Right.
And I did experience that. Like I felt like that while I was on it. But yeah, I was really disappointed I didn't get any of the other stuff. Although what I'm not disappointed in is when I worked at that nightclub.
Yeah.
And it was ecstasy then.
Right.
It's Molly now. It'll probably be like Teresa in a year. Let's go out with Teresa, bro.
Go Teresa, baby.
But anyway, what I did not experience, and I'm glad, is back then that's when everybody would take it and then like dance with glow sticks while sucking on a pacifier.
Yeah. You go to like those warehouse parties and the crazy techno's pumping.
Yeah. But grown men with pacifiers in their mouths, not a look, man.
I saw a Vice story like a couple months back about this woman followed or like sought out and followed these aging ravers, as they called them. These people that are in like their 50s and 60s and even 70s, like people who have been like MDMA raving, for like 30 years, and just the value they put on it. I'm not going to talk about the deterioration they might have experienced physically or mentally, but I do think it's interesting that you have these people that have had these experiences on MDMA and just, they're like, this is how I want to live my life. Like, these are the experiences I need to have or feel like I'm whole because of. Like, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I wonder if that plays out differently for someone who's not bipolar. Because, again, we're getting flooded with all this shit anyway.
Right? And
that's what MDMA does, is it basically opens the floodgates for the feel-good hormones.
Right.
But we are already flooded with the feel-good hormones when we're manic.
Right.
So maybe that's why it didn't feel like it did shit for
me
in that regard,
I don't know. It's a good point. This is going to be a weird question. It's very off topic. Did you have trouble finding these hard drugs?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you where you got them.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've always thought about. So I'm just like, man, what if I really wanted to do? I'd have no idea where to go. Like, I would immediately get arrested because I'd probably walk up to the first undercover cop and be like, do you have cocaine?
I'd like to take this time to give a shout out to the person who... No.
If you're looking for a good dealer.
2 weeks later, a man in Sherman Oaks was shot to death in his home.
Going back to weed, right?
Yeah.
What about weed? Like, obviously not illegal out here,
right?
Right? Do you do?
And even places where it's technically illegal, Tennessee, for instance, right? It's technically illegal. You can still buy gummies. Gummies are perfectly legal.
Really?
Yeah, it's
edibles.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know exactly what the law is there, but I feel like most of the country is probably like that now.
I know a lot of people who prefer edibles to smoking, and I wonder why that is. I wonder if that's because they don't like the smoke aspect of it, or they don't like
stinks,
or the smell.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if you're not a cigarette smoker,
Oh, right.
You know, the couple of times I've tried smoking, it just makes me cough my ass off.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant. I'm not like, oh, this is worth the high I get.
Sure.
Or whatever.
You know, I occasionally smoke cigars, and nicotine has a euphoric aspect to it. Like when I smoke cigars, there is, and like it's I definitely get a form of a high.
You know, bodybuilders chew nicotine gum to stay lean.
Do they really?
Yeah, because whatever that is that in nicotine that creates that high also suppresses your appetite.
I have heard that. I've heard that. Like
that's why
people,
smokers are usually
people who go off, like they quit smoking, they gain 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I wonder if nicotine, like if people use nicotine to try and combat some of their mental illnesses.
I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. But
yeah,
I mean, it would make sense. I feel like
anything that will augment how you currently feel.
Yeah,
like anything.
Well, and also just the risk taking behavior. No one who has bipolar who smokes is thinking like, oh, I might get lung cancer one day. You know?
Right, sure,
because you're in this risk taking grandiose mindset. Right. You know, no one's thinking that. So you're probably chain smoking a pack of Marlboros every 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, you know,
laughing about the Marlboro man dying.
Son of a bitch. You know, I've never been a drug user. You know, I smoked. I got shingles about 3 years ago. If you've never gotten shingles, I recommend don't get it. Super painful. And I started smoking regularly to help with the pain management. But after my shingles bout stopped, it just, I don't know. It's like, because I will drink. You know, I'm happy to drink.
Yeah.
Big fan. But I never look to marijuana as an escape like I do sometimes with alcohol. And I wonder why that is.
Yeah. I have a buddy who's been diagnosed with a few things. And I didn't realize this until recently that he was diagnosed with a few things. But he's the biggest pothead I've ever met.
Really?
Constantly high. And once I found out he was diagnosed with a few different conditions, I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's how he combats that.
Huh.
That's the only thing that makes him feel, I don't even know if even is the right word, but probably not. It's the only thing that makes him feel like he doesn't want to rip his skin off.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I mean, I would say also that in terms of going about your day-to-day life, I think being high is easier to manage than maybe being drunk.
Right.
You know?
Because it does just kind of, unless you're bipolar and it triggers a manic state, it just kind of takes the edge off of things.
Yeah, blurs the edges.
Yeah. Although some people get paranoia with it.
Oh, sure. Well, I think that's the thing about any drug that that makes me question taking them, right?
Yeah.
Like my brain chemistry is already effed, right? I know that. And so I continue to F with it by doing substances, be they junk food, alcohol, black tar, heroin, whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, they continue to affect my brain chemistry.
What about white tar heroin?
Don't be racist, Brad. Don't be racist. That's not what this show is about.
Sorry,
this show is not about racism, Brad.
Sorry. Sorry, heroin dealers.
Man, you always your agenda, your white tar agenda. I've been telling you, man.
Oh, we're going to piss off the cartels again.
Oh, damn it. Lo Ciento avocado. What was it we said?
Oh, te amo. Te amo cartels. Te amo avocado.
Te amo avocado.
Thanks for listening. Help us continue the conversation. Leave us a comment with your thoughts, experiences, or questions about mental health. Every opinion and viewpoint is valid. Just don't be a dick.
But yeah, that's something I think about is like, okay, I find some relief with my booze, right?
Yeah.
And, we have a friend who was big into ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like
who's also bipolar.
Who's also bipolar, right?
Yeah.
And they talked about, I can't remember. Wasn't it like once a month?
Yeah, they would go to these ayahuasca retreats.
Right, and it was like a weekend retreat.
Yeah, and you would go and you would take it and then you'd vomit your guts out.
Yep.
and then you were high for like 2 days.
Right, and you just experience, life in that state.
Yeah.
And they really enjoyed it, and they got a lot of mental clarity out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember him pre and post the ayahuasca stages. I don't necessarily remember a huge change in him demeanor-wise. Do you?
No.
Not really. I
No.
mean, maybe his mindset and his outlook changed.
Yeah.
But not necessarily his general being.
I know he's really into magic now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that what ayahuasca does?
Yeah.
It makes you into like close-up magic, like a lot
No,
of
not illusion. I think he's into like Kabbalistic sex magic or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that what? Wow. You know what, guys? Ayahuasca, your PR team needs to step it up, because if you were selling yourself better, you'd be bringing that up.
Yeah, seriously. That's a major selling
That's
point.
a major selling
Do
point.
ayahuasca, get into sex
Get
magic.
into sex magic.
Which could also be a self-medication.
Self-medication sex magic?
Yeah.
See, I'm trying to imagine what that would be. That would be like, I'm going to make my penis disappear.
I mean, I've been with some chicks who've been able to do that
good
for me.
you.
so-
Good for you, buddy.
Oh, I meant that one way.
Yep,
I bet
yep.
that came another.
Yep,
okay,
there it is.
sorry,
Yep,
sorry. I meant the whole thing would go away from me.
Right.
Sorry.
Or
that
they'd
sounded-
emasculate you to the
that-
point where you no longer have a penis.
Oh yeah. I've definitely been with
Definitely
those
with
chicks.
those girls, yeah.
Yeah. Just 2 hours of just emasculation. I'm chopping my hand as though Lorena Bobbitt's cutting. Now there's a deep cut reference
There's a real
for
deep
you.
cut. See, I thought you were going to reference the Atlanta Braves. Like, that's what the Atlanta Braves is all about.
It's just like cock chopping. You guys completely misunderstood the meaning of scalping.
Gross, but funny. How do we get on this?
God, I don't know.
Sex magic.
Ayahuasca.
There it is. Sex magic ayahuasca. Right.
Yeah.
Let's back up. Sex magic ayahuasca.
You guys have listened to this show long enough. You know we can't
get
stay on
it,
topic.
You get it. Side note. But yeah, like you were saying, like that was one of his ways probably of self-medicating, right?
Yeah.
I think the issue one of the big issues I have is how detrimental. Forget for a second the physical effects of drugs, right? Forget that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the financial thing, the financial fuck you that is like the use of drugs.
Oh yeah.
Like the cost that it put and the strain that it puts on.
Good God.
Oh my God, man! Like,
yeah.
Again, I'm just talking about. Let's talk about the scotch we're drinking right now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yes. Can you buy, Old Milwaukee? Sure you can. But even
But
then,
you're a
like-
monster.
But you're a degenerate scum if you do that. No, but like alcohol at any level, like you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on alcohol.
just on alcohol.
And
that's not even getting into like if you're getting into coke. If you're doing, I have no idea what heroin costs.
no.
Actually, I feel like I read somewhere that because of the opioid epidemic, that heroin's actually cheaper.
Oh, so it's a reasonable narcotic.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
good.
for you budget conscious,
For the budget conscious addicts out there, maybe look into some
black tar.
Black tar heroin.
Just the black
Just
tar.
the black tar heroin, Brad.
Sorry.
But yeah, the financial implications, the strains obviously they put on your marriage, and all the while, or relationships, and all the while you're just trying to medicate yourself.
And it makes it harder if you're undiagnosed to get diagnosed.
Sure.
Because being on cocaine and being manic look exactly the same. And, that's one of the first questions they'll ask you when you go into a psychiatrist or if you go to a mental health urgent care, for instance, is, are you on any substances?
Mhm.
Because you cannot be diagnosed until those substances are out of your system.
Right. Yeah. God, man. Drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad.
Well, again, the way that drugs work, you take coke, for instance, and or like I was talking about MDMA, it releases all those chemicals
right.
in your body. What's happening when you go manic? All those chemicals are getting released.
Yeah. And it's funny because we spend so much of this podcast talking about how people should be on medication.
Yeah.
Right?
And you should.
And you should. But at the same time, it's but hold on. Let's really talk about this for a second, because this is just medication that's been sanctioned by the medical community, and the FDA.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we justify the use of things like Lamictal, you know, and Percocet and not Percocet.
Because they've been shown to have positive benefit.
Right, totally.
Yeah. That's the thing about any of these illicit drugs. You may feel, or I shouldn't say illicit because we're talking about some legal ones too.
Right.
Recreational drugs.
Recreational.
You may feel that it's helping, but like we talked about, alcohol, for instance, may take the edge off, make you even, et cetera, et cetera. But then the next day, it's driving you into depression.
Right.
You know, these recreational drugs create those states.
Sure. One of the things I was actually really excited about with marijuana being legalized is for the longest time they've talked about some of the positive aspects of marijuana.
Yeah.
Like dealing with pain, you know what I mean? Or
and it's good for people who have unipolar depression.
Yep. Right. And it's a situation where, like, what other medical benefits are there? You know, like people talk about like microdosing, right? And the benefits of microdosing with LSD. And like
well, all of this gets really interesting because obviously I'm no scientist.
What?
Lab coat aside.
Those glasses are fake?
This is just fashion. It's just fashion.
Bringing lab coats back.
Yeah. She blinded me with science. Bringing that back.
Deep cut. Another deep cut. Falco, right? Was that Falco?
No. Who was that?
I thought it was Falco. No, because Falco did...
If you know who that was, please.
She blinded me with science.
Thomas Dolby?
Maybe.
Something like that?
I can't remember.
Oh, anyway.
Falco did Rock Me Amadeus.
Oh, that's right.
Right, sorry. Okay.
That's excellent.
That's
Yeah.
Dude, that song, all day. All day. That song.
What the fuck was I talking about?
We were talking about lab coats, and then before lab coats, you're not a doctor.
Oh, that yeah. I'm no scientist.
Scientist, there it is.
But a lot of the stuff I've read is microdosing hallucinogens. That came out a really thick tongue. Hallucinogens.
That's a hard word, though.
Yeah. Maybe all of you listening are on hallucinogens right now.
This is just the Kiss album played backwards. Yeah. There is no podcast, you guys.
Satan is good. Satan is your pal.
Play Dungeons and Dragons.
So, a lot of these show promise with fighting depression and with fighting anxiety, but for bipolar, they tend to trigger mania. So that happens with psychedelics. That also happens. There's a lot of research with ketamine therapy on depression. And it seems from what I was reading that the community is kind of split on whether that would work for bipolar or not. There seems to be some evidence that it could trigger mania, but it's not definitive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the one danger with a lot of these alternative therapies. Is you have to remember, being bipolar, you kind of have two diseases at once.
Right. And
you could fix one while exacerbating the other.
Right, and I think that's one of the hardest parts about self-medication, right? Because anything we can do to self-medicate, it soothes one, one problem, and like you said, exacerbates the other.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, my alcohol may help with my mania, but fucking does not do anything for my depression. Let me tell you would.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense because we tend to be, you're on 2 medications right now, right?
2, yes.
Yeah, me too. And people who have bipolar tend to be on multiple medications because you have to attack both sides of the thing.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful with recreational drugs and with these alternative therapies, which we want to do an episode on, by the way, but it requires research. And if you've been listening to us for a while,
we're not great at that.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We just don't have any time. Like, I barely have time to edit these damn things.
And we try to sell it as like, oh, that's our thing. Like,
right.
The show's raw. It's like just hanging out with 2
Super
dudes
raw.
while they're talking. But it's really that we don't want to do a lot of work.
And it's not laziness. We're not lazy. It's just what I'm honestly concerned about is like feeling overwhelmed by this podcast.
Right.
I do not want to feel overwhelmed, and I don't want to stop doing it.
That's why we do 3 episodes a night, because we don't have to do it constantly.
Yeah, we haven't done one for like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2 weeks,
and we're ahead. We've got 3
in the bank.
3 in the bank, I think, to drop, and we're going to do 3 tonight, and so we stay ahead like that.
Yeah. You know what's funny is there was a show I think on Netflix now with like it's got who are the guys? Will Arnett, Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes, because they had a podcast, and now they're touring the podcast. Like, basically what they do is they go to, like, giant auditoriums and do the podcast live. And I remember watching this being like, oh, Batshit gets really big. I guess we could do that. Sounds terrible. No. We'd have to do, like, one event a month. You know what I mean? Like, we couldn't do, like, a tour.
Well, first we got to speak at colleges and get canceled.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact that we would get to colleges would be impressive.
Yeah. We would, so, we get messages every now and then, folks, from people, never people who are themselves mentally ill.
Right.
Who try to take us to task for calling the show Batshit and laughing about mental illness. And I'm always just like, do you have anything? Because I do. Right. This is how I stay sane. If I didn't laugh about it, I'd curl up in a fetal position in the corner like when the mailman took my virginity.
Oh, that's a whole nother episode.
I didn't know this is what you meant by overnighting it.
This is priority first class, Brad. Priority first class.
The mailman didn't take my virginity.
Nope.
It was just a handy.
Handy. Which is funny because that was actually his first name.
Oh, man. You'd think we were several scotches in.
Yeah, we're not, though. This is like our first glass. Look, I think to surmise, you need a way of dealing with your disease. And I encourage everyone out there to explore various coping mechanisms and explore yourself and explore the positive and negative reactions to whatever you do to cope. And, that may be all sorts of different avenues and different things, but don't get reliant on it. Like, I am not reliant on the medication I take every morning to deal with my depression and my bipolar.
And if you're doing something outside the norm,
yeah,
if it's not something that's been prescribed to you, you're doing an alternative therapy, you're doing recreational drugs, do a little bit of research and see how that's affecting you. And I'm not talking about research into like, oh, this can cause cancer or blah, blah. No. I'm just talking about how it can affect your disorder.
Right.
And, we talk about bipolar. We talked about unipolar depression with some of these, which I don't want to say people with unipolar depression are lucky, but you have more options.
Sure.
With these things. But I have no idea, how does it affect you if you're schizophrenic and you do psychedelics? Does that help? Does that make it worse? I have no idea. And if you are schizophrenic and you're thinking about doing psychedelics, maybe do a little bit of research first.
I mean, yeah, they talk about how people with PTSD, microdosing has really helped a lot of them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. My point is, don't become reliant on these. Don't have your only coping mechanism be medication and drugs. Yeah. Just don't. Find another coping mechanism.
Because especially remember with a lot of these things, bipolar and other conditions, as you ramp up, you've got the impulsivity.
Yep.
You've got the risk taking. You have the grandiosity where you think you're invincible. Now imagine all those feelings: impulsivity, risk taking. You think you're invincible, and now you're doing a drug that could kill you in high enough doses.
Whee!
Fun.
So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, McGruff the crime dog is standing behind us, making us say all these things. Don't do drugs. No, not at all. I'm not going to tell anyone not to do something. I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. You know what I mean? If you want to experiment with microdosing, you want to experiment with recreational drugs, booze, that's fine. That's your life. Live your life however you want to do it. Just don't become reliant on it.
Yeah.
Just don't make it the only answer.
And at least be aware of how it's going to affect your condition if you have one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well,
and if you know a place where I can score some.
No, Brad. No, Brad.
Sorry,
no. It's not what this podcast. That when we first started this broadcast, Brad was like, "I'm going to score so much drugs." I'm like, "No, Brad. That's not what this podcast is about."
If you guys know where I can get some coke,
or some white tar heroin, fucking Brad.
Maybe like a massage parlor I could go to.
Damn it! This has all been a long con. It's just been a long con by Brad. Suckers. No. We're not promoting drug use. We're also not telling you how to live your life.
Not condemning it.
Yeah, we're just...
It just is what it is.
It is what it is. Regardless, you know what one drug is that we have in abundance is our love for you.
Ooh.
No, but seriously, guys and girls and non-binary folk, thank you so much for listening, for supporting.
Leave reviews.
Leave
us voice messages on Spotify.
Share this with people. Keep in mind, we're not advertising this. Like, the videos that we're recording right now are the first attempts we're going to make at social media.
Yeah.
Which I doubt are going to go well. Like, I'm going to tell you right now.
If you guys could see the shine on my head right now. I can't stop looking at it in the monitor here. It's just...
So the fact that you are all sharing this with the people you love and the people that you think need to hear it, it's awesome. Please keep doing it. Please keep writing in, letting us know. Remember that you're loved, you're seen. We appreciate you as much as you appreciate us, if not more so. Take care of yourselves.